All right, so now I'm going to get into the second part of this video. Now, this is a publication called Enlivening Edge, excuse the cat. Token engineering is the future of organizational design. Okay, so again, oh my goodness. Shh. So, once again, there's a failure of organizational imagination. Governments, corporations, and nonprofit organizations just can't seem to crack society's biggest challenges. We're going to do that through token engineering, aren't we? We're reimagining value on the blockchain. We're in the early days of a technology revolution that will help us do just that. The Internet of Value. This new technology decentralizes computing so that it's hard for intermediaries like Google, Amazon, JP Morgan Chase to act as gatekeepers for economic transactions. The resulting freedom won't just level playing fields, it creates space to redefine the very notion of what we consider valuable in the first place. Blockchains give us the power to move transactions to new economic networks that organize themselves around something other than just maximizing returns for shareholders. Now, this sounds like a lovely idea, and to be honest, again, I'm not sure if I disagree with it or not. But the question is who's pushing it and why, right? So, blockchain modularity. Tokens transform all manner of assets, money, driver's licenses, car titles, corporate equity, and even artwork into virtual objects that can be easily stored on a blockchain. Tokens represent economic value that can be easily manipulated with blockchain based software called smart contracts. Smart contracts work like software libraries and application programming interfaces from earlier computing platforms. Putting a smart contract on a public blockchain allows anyone to use it without permission, which further extends its modularity. The next level of blockchain modularity mixes tokens, smart contracts, and organizational processes. Okay, organizational processes. These crypto-economic primitives serve as reusable patterns for abstracting workflow so that they can easily be replicated across organizations. Examples include prediction markets, token curated registries, and augmented bonding curves. We're going to get into that one. These building blocks further amplify blockchain modularity by drawing on the synergy that comes from fusing economic assets, workflows, and software. Crypto-economic primitives are what enable decentralized autonomous organizations and future forms of economic coordination we can't even imagine today. We're engineering a brighter future. Okay. Token engineering is vital to changing the way we organize humanity. These Lego-like building blocks will crack open the underlying economic models and flows of value that define organizations. Yes, other disciplines will be needed, but token engineering is how we will connect those other practices into the Internet of Value. Okay. So I wanted to compare this image, which you saw in the previous video, with this image. So this is a depiction of a decentralized autonomous organization, a DAO, which is built on smart contracts. And this is a traditional management structure. So, I mean, in a way, a DAO is similar to the sociocratic model here, but at least in and of itself, there truly isn't one person or one like center force controlling all of this, right? Like it doesn't resemble that exactly, but it's like the same sort of thing that they're pitching to you, right? It's decentralized, right? Okay. This article It's entitled Automating Ostrom for Effective DAO Management, Designing Cyberphysical Commons to be Ostrom Compliant. So this is about the merging, the metaverse and our current world. Few people have contributed as much to our knowledge of the sustainable management of the commons as Elinor Ostrom. Winning the 2009 Nobel Prize in Economics for her work, Ostrom's 8 principles for common stewardship have set a standard for community management of shared resources. These principles, collected over a lifetime of research into effective commons worldwide, are a fantastic look at large-scale human collaboration outside of the corporation and the nation-state. Right? We don't like the nation-state, right? Okay? You anarchists, we're not about this, right? This is the alternative solution they're presenting to you. Although applying these rules at scale can be challenging, recent research suggests that blockchain technology may have a role to play in overcoming key obstacles, further enabling communities to manage themselves. Elevating trust from the interpersonal to the protocol level opens up space for experimentation with new forms of collective action to achieve common goals, right? And this is basically what Sociocracy claims to do. It has to be based on common goals. Where is that? Yeah, shared agenda, okay? Consistent way of measuring, collecting data, okay? Blockchain. Mutually enforcing activities, cybernetics. Continuous communication, feedback loops. Backbone organization to support the overall effort, which is ultimately the centralized authority here. Okay? All right. As first steps in that exploration, we've identified several tools and processes that could help translate Ostrom's principles into DAO templates, which form a cyber-physical commons framework that allows purpose-driven communities to effectively manage shared resources. By implementing these principles using blockchain technology where appropriate, the Common Stack wants to contribute technical and cultural tools to aid in the decentralization and democratization of current power structures and empower the commons. So again, whatever these current power structures are, they are being done away with. However good or however flawed they are. We're building ground-up world governance with sociocracy. That's the stated goal. A cyber-physical commons framework. At the Common Stack, we're using the principles of token engineering to create a customizable library of tools for facilitating the communal management of public goods. So what is a cyber-physical commons? Building on existing literature, we propose it is an extension of cyber-physical systems like power grids. A cyber-physical system is a mechanism that is controlled or monitored by computer-based algorithms tightly integrated with the internet and its users. In cyber-physical systems, physical and software components are deeply intertwined, each operating on different spatial and temporal scales and interacting with each other in a lot of ways that change with context. A cyber-physical commons would consist of a purpose-driven community using a cyber-physical system to achieve shared goals. It links the commons to the growth of digital networks and represents another step in the paradigm shift that has revived interest in cooperatives, the growth of a sharing economy, and the thriving open source and blockchain movements. And look, again, I am not even against any of this shit. I'm not even against blockchain entirely. Okay, but we need to look at the big picture here. Obviously, any effort to coordinate communities around shared goals needs to take into account the necessary cultural requirements to make those efforts a success. Our focus on the trusted seed is a key element of cultural initialization, but these communities will also need to establish standards, legal strategies, policies, and procedures to ensure that they are well positioned to achieve their goals without succumbing to social breakdowns. We will focus on how the technical aspects of a cyber-physical commons architecture align with Ostrom's famous 8 principles for commons management and can help us achieve Ostrom compliance. Okay. Commons need to have clearly defined boundaries. One of the benefits of using blockchain technology in commons management is that the boundaries of inclusion are clear. Token holders are part of the system, non-holders are not. Tokens can represent a holder's contributions to a community, giving appropriate access rights and proportional decision-making power in that group, as well as fractional ownership. So, one quick thing here, proportional decision-making power, if this is based on tokens, means that whoever has the most tokens will have the most power. In that sense, it will reflect a hierarchical society, right? The common stack augmented bonding curve takes it even further by creating an economic boundary that insulates the internal economy of the commons from the external economic world. All interactions with the outside world happen by interacting with the bonding curve. For example, participants could opt into the boundaries of a commons and receive tokens by contributing funds, likely a stablecoin, to the ABC, or contributing time by proposing and completing tasks. Contributed funds fuel the internal economy and can be used to incentivize the completion of tasks. Completed work is paid out in tokens or converted to stablecoins via the bonding curve. These tokens could then be used to govern the commons ecosystem proportionally to the time and or financial contributions of each participant. By clearly defining the economic boundaries of a commons ecosystem, the ABC improves on traditional coordination tools and satisfies Ostrom's first principle by demarcating a clearly defined system boundary. Rules need to fit local circumstances. There is no one-size-fits-all approach to shared resource management. Rules and values should be determined according to the needs of engaged participants and ecological limits, or they risk falling out of touch with people on the ground and become irrelevant. Commons architectures must enable value-aligned groups, including a trusted core community, to coordinate around shared problems that are relevant to them. It is worth noting that certain digital technologies offer to expand the definition of local from shared geography to shared purpose. This is very important because we are moving away from the nation state, okay? We are moving towards something like this, which is based on bioregions and not currently established boundaries. Okay. And this is an example, the Region Foundation, of network governance and community participation. So this is a real life example of what they were describing up here. Okay. Tokens representing a holder's contributions to a community, giving appropriate access rights and proportional decision-making power in that group, as well as fractional ownership. Okay. So this is a real example. Region Foundation has a mandate to distribute 30% of the total pool of region tokens earmarked for non-commercial stakeholders. This gives a voice to people who otherwise would not be heard, and hopefully even to the more than human world. It's kind of creepy. Through a process of endowment, we donate tokens to groups of farmers, indigenous nations, and other nonprofit partners. They can use these tokens to vote in the region network governance and help shape the future of the region toolkit. They will then receive more tokens as reward for their role in keeping the blockchain running. These tokens can be exchanged for money, which they can use to fund their operations. Okay, so it's like it's hierarchy disguised as not a hierarchy because you're still like getting money from someone in this larger organization, right? Just wanted to bring that up real quick. Many projects in the blockchain space provide prescriptive platform-based solutions. The Common Stack is taking a different approach to supporting localism by giving communities greater choice in the structure of their commons, with the features of these software-aided organizations being highly customizable. This is why they need micro-identities too. They need to create markets for many different people, so they need to understand all the small differences in all of us to engineer us completely and totally. For example, in addition to deciding what funding streams are appropriate for its specific context, a community can also choose an appropriate governance template. Among other customizations, participatory decision making is vital. Right, you're not allowed to not participate, honestly. That's where this is going. With the new tools available to us, we can start to think outside our legacy voting systems and turn the dream of large-scale community decision-making into a reality. That all starts with a trusted group of people dedicated to a shared goal and incentivized to guide these early commons experiments towards success. Conviction voting offers us the opportunity to eliminate time-based attack vectors on our community voting systems and increase voter engagement. Honestly, this is one of the best arguments in favor of blockchain that I've ever heard. Our voting system is a joke. So this very much intrigues me. If anyone has anything to say about it, I'd be very interested to know. But yeah, anyways, by designing our decision-making systems with a modular approach, we can allow communities to implement the right governance solution for each type of decision being made, instead of reusing the same limited yes-no time box voting method every time. This is a radical opportunity to empower communities to orient their political processes to fit their social paradigms, rather than having to take social action against the grain of their existing political systems, as we see too often today. Another benefit to using blockchain technology is that governance rights can be tokenized. Being able to granularly measure contributions to a communal cause and allocate reputation that represents decision-making power in that community becomes much easier when using the Cyberphysical Commons architecture. This allows us to move past insufficient one-person, one-vote systems and allows members to express the intensity of their preference for certain proposals, weighted by their contributions to the group. Remember, contributions being either time or money. So if you don't have those, then screw you, I guess. And I guess the more money you have, the less it matters how much time you put into this, which means you can put your fingers in a lot more different projects, right? Okay. Like, honestly, I'd be all for this if it was just every single member's vote counted equally, no matter how much time or money they put into it. That makes more sense to me. Commons must receive legal recognition in the jurisdictions where they operate. Yeah. So it's just interesting, because I feel like this is kind of on its way to replacing these legal jurisdictions. Rules are enforced by effective and accountable monitoring. Once rules have been established, communities need a way of checking that people are following them in a manner that is still accountable to those in the community. Contributors need good information to ensure they are making the best decisions for the future of the organization. Social science literature has much to say on the positive behavioral norms, engendered by transparency. And transparency and privacy are kind of on two different ends of the same spectrum, aren't they? Observability often encourages good behavior, and good governance requires that decision makers be informed about the interactions within a community. Observability often encourages good behavior, aka if you're being watched all the time, you're less likely to do certain things that maybe wouldn't be considered good, right? This relies on surveillance. Blockchain technology, when used appropriately, can bring the features of transparency and accountability to commons management. And see, transparency is a good thing, right? And I don't think that the elites can escape this phenomenon either with this technology. So, you win some, you lose some, but this is really concerning. This is concerning. I mean, this is about behaviorism, which I'll probably get into in a later video. And I'm not going in the order that I kind of proposed I would, with the little graph that I made in previous videos, like Tim Berners-Lee and, that woman from the Intentional Community Foundation. I'm kind of all over the place, but I think eventually, building a body of work, you'll be able to see where all this stuff comes together. Okay. Yeah, effective monitoring and yeah. I mean, the nice thing about it is that it's observable by everyone, right? That's that's good. It's not like it's only observed by some people, but still, like, you're being watched at all times, right? Sanctions for violations should be graduated. So, yeah, I mean, this is kind of minor, but I guess instead of banning people outright, just kind of de-incentivize certain behavior rules. Okay? So this is like cybernetics in a nutshell, like these feedback mechanisms promoting positive behavior. Social credit score is kind of an example of this. It is important to consider the systemic impact of particular sanctions, which is why we see holistic simulation of agent interactions using CAD as a core component of the common stack. For example, a community may implement a reputation system that penalizes wrongdoing with a loss in social credibility. Okay, this is social credit score. While others may go for metrics based on experience, where a history of unsuccessful proposals leads to a higher bar for passing future ones. Other forms of sanctions are also possible, including the extreme option of blacklisting members from participation in the group. In other words, communities using common stacks tools have multiple suitable options to satisfy Ostrom's sixth principle of graduated sanctions. Conflict resolution should be easily accessible and low cost. Do we recall that the people working on Sociocracy also work on nonviolent communication, TM? Yeah, I'm gonna, okay, we'll get to that part. So, when users opt into a smart contract, the agreement is enacted according to programmed conditions. Looking past the technical aspects, however, conflict resolution at the social level will still remain a necessity. In the most extreme cases, conflict resolution can be handled through graduated levels of future decentralized court systems, with escalation to real-world legal systems where necessary. Commons should be nested ecosystems within larger commons. So this is the sociocracy connection here. And what does that sound like, right? Commons nested within commons. That's the exact same structure here, right? Okay. Some resources can be managed internally, while others call for wider regional cooperation with nested layers of decision-making, expanding jurisdiction to appropriate levels. For example, the management of a field may only require local stakeholders, whereas the management of a river should involve downstream stakeholders as well. Decision-making power should flow to the people most connected to that which is being governed. Although the Common Stack library is initially intended for use by small community groups, our design is fractal in nature. So yeah, this is where it begins. Small community groups, co-housing, okay? But it's fractal in nature. So eventually it will be spread everywhere, as the governance from below website suggested. Each participant in the commons should be, or could be another commons, allowing for the creation of federated community structures, a tactic suggested in the Disco Manifesto. This facilitates polycentric governance with a sociocratic structure, enabling flexible decision-making networks of nested responsibility that could operate under a hierarchical structure. Again, holacracy, under a hierarchical structure. A horizontal leaderless structure, quote unquote leaderless because it's not really leaderless like sociocracy, or anything in between. For example, local commons could participate in regional commons, which could collaborate with global commons on work that helps to realize shared objectives. Okay. We look forward to a future in which we can increasingly automate Ostrom to facilitate the application of these principles by communities, seeking to effectively manage shared resources. So again, I'm going to remind everyone that a decentralized autonomous organization, a DAO, is built on smart contracts. And once it's set up, it's kind of hard to modify. So it's passing over a lot of power to the technology itself. In a way, like centralized blockchain is less scary. Just depends on what it's being applied to, you know? So again, like within a small community, sure, whatever, but you're going to automate a like global governance system basically. That's what they're talking about. We believe that a templated cyberphysical commons framework can be used by communities to easily implement Ostrom's rules, blah 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 blah. Yeah, thrive through the emergence of networked alternative economies. So yeah, think about that next time you listen to, you know, Derek Bros talk about alternative economies. Yeah. Yeah, it's building kind of a cybernetic framework. And intentional communities are a perfect place to start this because each one of them could have their own tokens. Each one of them could have their own currency and the voting system based on that. So, yeah, this is the augmented bonding curve. Enables communities to create their own token ecosystems that drive group behavior toward common goals and gives users the power to design the incentive mechanisms that will shape their commons. Again, but once these incentive mechanisms are designed with a DAO, it's kind of hard to undo that. Like if your digital wallet is tied to something and it requires certain things, it's hard to make modifications to it. Yeah, so kind of get the picture, right? So this is an article called "Democracy is Dead, Long Live Sociocracy," and it's published by this website, which is owned by a company that uses Sociocracy as its governance system. Okay, so yeah, invented by the Quakers. So this is a cooperative, but it's a company. Okay, yeah, this is a DAO, by the way. So again, it has a similar structure to Sociocracy, but slightly different. Yeah, so this is the company. It's a tech company, of course, to make the world a fairer, better place. So in the future, what I envision is, you know, you have to justify basically everything you do, and you'll get tokens that way, like positive reinforcement behavior. A fairer, better place from web apps, data dashboards, and monitoring tools. Again, it can only be accomplished through monitoring. That aid the discovery of new insights from complex data to mass impact campaigns and websites that promote your causes and mobilize your key audiences. Again, promoting your causes, like create a children's caucus or whatever the fuck, as noted in the previous video. This is how you will mobilize people because they'll be forced to participate in order to access basic resources, I think is what people like Klaus Schwab have in mind. Again, it's not to say that you can't use this technology responsibly, but it's dangerous. We need to talk about that. Okay. So, anyways, positive change, positive change. It's all about positive change. Consenting to a deeper democracy. Yeah, consent versus consensus. First of all, I don't think that consensus is the opposite of consent. And again, like usually the majority opinion is correct as far as being a true representation of what people want. It's usually like smaller groups, very small, loud groups of people that get what they want more than the average person, the majority. That's just what I've noticed. It's only like special interest groups funded by billionaires that get what they want these days. Just a side note. So, although a system in which everyone has to agree in order to make a decision sounds problematic, the evidence is that it's an extremely powerful and even liberating method of governance. Blah, blah, blah. Okay, it's going pretty well. Good, good, good. Everyone gets heard. So they pull up these two different diagrams. This is a hierarchy. See, again, this is still a hierarchy. Like, I don't really see a huge difference between these two diagrams. This is supposedly with sociocracy, right? And this is a traditional company structure. It seems like in the traditional company structure, you simply delegate tasks to people, but you're not like intertwined with them at all times. This requires you to be intertwined at all times, right? I mean, let's go back to this article really quickly. Exhaustive detail. Wait, where's the first one? Each circle is required to be run democratically and openly with exhaustively detailed procedures on how things like meetings are to be managed and how decisions are to be made. So, on that note, I kind of want to pull up some more screenshots. So, once I presented this information to Allison, I was kind of like browsing Twitter, Twitter page for Sociocracy for All. And yeah, you can see right here, I hope, Sociocracy and DAOs, DAOs being presented as an enabler for sociocracy, right? But then, Allison and I got into a little bit of a tiff with Sociocracy for All. Yeah, here she was commenting on this woman who was a Quaker and works with the UN, and again is a neurolinguistics master practitioner, just like our friend Ted Rao. So this is what they said. They said, "Hey there, can we hear what's going on? We are being quoted, but we're not sure what the context is. It's a bit uncomfortable. Thank you for explaining." So you can just kind of hear the tone, right? It's like, this is the tone of the consent-based decision structure. Like, you're probably never allowed to get angry at anyone. Like, it's not considered, like, with the nonviolent communication thing, it's like you're probably never allowed to get angry. And you have to present things a certain way with a certain structure, or else, like, you can't and won't be heard. You'll be deemed a violent communicator or something. And so, yeah, the way this is presented, it's like, again, just using linguistics to mask reality. So yeah, she's talking about cybernetic programs, declaring people guilty by association. I mean, look, it's baked in. They're whoever's running this Twitter account is either unaware or just doesn't care about the fact that this is baked into the system. I mean, it's on their own video. Cybernetics Revisited, if this will load. Like, we just read this article about the augmented bonding curve being positive reinforcement systems, okay, just like cybernetics, combined with the quote unquote non-hierarchical meeting structure of the Quakers. This is the brainchild of those two things. So to act like they don't know what they're talking about, I think, is probably misleading, because people kind of know who Allison is, and I don't think they want any bad press because they're being associated with people like John Bush and being billed as, part and parcel of the freedom movement. I mean, that's a little concerning,